Welcome to Saints on Cinema. I'm Tim Wilde, and joining with me today are the LeBaron family. Some of them. So Jayson and Karina, and you might be thinking, well, where are the rest of them? I don't have that big of a couch, so this is what we're doing today. But today we're doing a very special conversation that I've been wanting to do for 2 weeks because I've seen Endgame twice. Jason's seen it twice. Karina's half as cool as we are, so she's seen it once.
Children. Oh my gosh.
But when I saw it opening day, I saw it with my brother and my friends, and I came out of the movie theater just crying, just like every other man who is in denial of their feelings. And I really needed to get it out. I decided I wasn't going to do a review on the movie. I posted that, and I just was trying to deal with the emotions. And I had no idea how much I cared about these characters until I was sobbing, thinking about how each of them tied together in their own little Marvel family, and as far as their stories, how much they meant to fans and people, and what they represented in statements to the world and things that we are dealing with in society, and all that just wrapped up in a perfect film. I'll say it. If I was reviewing, I'd give it a 10 out of 10, even though there's some issues in the movie, but nothing worth like critiquing, and definitely that's not what we're here to do today. Today, I wanted to have a therapeutic session with my friends the LeBarons, and just to get it all out, because even though it was 2 weeks ago from now when I saw it, I wanted to make a list of my top 7. This is a top 7 episode of the top 7 moments that made me cry. However, it's really hard to pinpoint that because I couldn't figure out where one sobbing session ended and the next began. They started kind of overflowing together, so I couldn't totally identify the moments, but I made a list of 21 moments that I could have selected, but I have it down to 7. So if you guys have other things that you wanted to talk about as I throw my clipboard on the floor, if there's other moments that you guys want to talk about, we've just been talking a little bit about the movie in general, then that's cool. This is what we're here for. We're here to support each other. If Captain America was here, he could help us get through the devastation of our feelings and the sadness of our losses. And this is good timing because this is after the Marvel official lift of the embargo for people to spoil whatever they want. So definite spoils.
The most spoiled movie of all time because everyone saw opening weekend.
Everyone, I was like, so if you haven't already seen it, then you're like one of the 1/3 of the world that didn't see it yet. So
under a rock.
I was going to do the math on that and see how many per ticket sales to see on average, how many people in the world have actually seen it.
Well, and devotees have seen it more than once.
I have a couple of friends that's the thing. So if even the ticket sales doesn't identify how many people have seen it, because a lot of them saw it more than one time, if they're cool enough, right, Karina?
If they could find us there,
All right. So anyway, I have this down to my top 7, and these aren't necessarily in order, but the thing is, the way I finally pinpoint my 7 were, these are the ones that made me cry just as much the second time going through. And people had told me that the second time going through, you now you know what to expect, you know the story, so you can kind of appreciate more of those moments. Did you find that, Jayson?
Definitely. That's how I felt, because the first time I was like lost in a little bit of the time travel, trying to wrap my head around it. Following the story, like making sure I understood the rules of everything. So I don't think I got to appreciate it as much. But the second time, yes, exactly what you said. It was like some of those moments that I wasn't worrying about the story anymore, just really set in, these characters, these arcs are just amazing.
Yeah, and the art, and that's the thing. There's so much closure to so many characters, and think like Thor's mom dying. Like people forgot all about that from so long ago, and everyone's like, "That's like the worst Marvel movie." As a mother,
so bitter,
like Thor: Dark World, you kind of write off,
people can't even remember until they show it.
Natalie Portman's.
And you notice how little there was no emphasis on her at all.
Yeah, she even had a cute little moment.
She sat up from a bed.
Yeah, she sat up.
She sat up and walked, and then
Rocket
come behind her with his cool tripod syringe thing. Anyway, okay, so here we go.
Okay,
this is my list, and I don't think I'm gonna cry right now. But after I saw it,
I won't judge.
I'm not afraid of crying. I think I'm okay. After I saw it the first day, whenever, even just having casual conversations with people, my boss and with people after they saw it, if they didn't appreciate it, I was just talking about it, and just in general, not talking about why I cried. just talking about some of those moments just made me cry. I would well up. All the every conversation I had, I was like, I seriously have to get this out. So anyway, this maybe not be the ones that really struck me that day, but they're still good moments. So anyway, top 7. So number 7, I put the Soul Stone sacrifice with Hawkeye and Black Widow. Now, here's the thing about that is no one appreciates Hawkeye. I love Hawkeye. I've loved him since the beginning, and everyone's like, no one cares about Hawkeye. And I've heard a lot of people reviewing this movie have that conversation, saying he should have been one to go because we don't care about him. I don't understand it because Hawkeye's freaking awesome. And Jeremy does such a good job, and he has so much even from the first Avengers movie. I mean, he was cool in Thor, but for the record, that was just a cool moment. But anyway, in Avengers, just his being torn and being, when he was brainwashed or whatever, mind controlled by Loki, like he had such intensity and everything, and that caused an effect on Thor. Like their relationship meant everything, but Hawkeye being under that control, you saw that same connection with him and Black Widow. Natasha, and that carried on every time, and he was so very humbled, and he almost felt like, I'm not good enough to even help in this fight at the end of that movie in Avengers. And so between that and then everyone hates the Age of Ultron.
Oh, I love that movie, and I feel like that really had a lot of defining moments for Hawkeye and Black Widow's relationship, which really set the stage for what they had to go through in Endgame. Yeah, because they were really close, and we only got to know that through Avengers, through Age of Ultron. That's pretty much it. And so just understanding that relationship was huge.
Well, and honestly, I think that I've always appreciated Hawkeye. I connect so much with him because he has a family. He's the type of person who it's like, if we saw something wrong with the world, we would hope that we would have the skills to go out and do it. He's not super, he's very, very skilled, but he's not, superhuman or anything. And the fact that he, after
Civil War, that's the other.
Civil War, yeah. After he, all of this stuff goes down, and he just happens to have this home. He has this whole other life that the rest of the Avengers don't have, and that's why he's so important. Is because not only is he living in this world, he has to be thinking about this other world. He doesn't. Natasha hasn't made the same. She's sacrificed, but I think that's why she.
And that's true. And the thing is with this movie, it rips everyone's heart out watching Tony, because in that 5 years he found that he has a daughter. His whole life he had his broken relationship with his dad, and now he had all his ups and downs with Pepper. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now that he at the end of it all, there he is, and he's got a daughter. He doesn't have all the money and the corporation or anything. He's just sitting there on the lake and just enjoying just his simple domestic life. Mm-hmm. And he is torn in that conversation where he's talking to Pepper, and he's like, I fixed it. I figured out time travel, but part of me, something wants me to just bury it in the lake and just cut our losses and just move on. Because he's like, I want to help, but I don't want to give up what I have. Mm-hmm. Hawkeye had that. Mm-hmm. In the beginning of the movie, you saw Hawkeye with that, his family, domestic life in the woods, almost the same scenario, only it was taken from him. Yeah. So you see that contrast. We're like, oh, Tony, go help, but we don't want him to lose his daughter. Well, we kind of forget that Hawkeye just lost his family. Yeah. Yeah. And it's not just about that, but his sacrifice with Natasha, that's why that was so gripping, is because the decision who's going to go, they both have done horrible things in their past, and that's what his line was. I what I've done, and he's been doing all this stuff as Ronin, and we don't have all that history, but Natasha's been facing this the entire time, and we've seen that in her, and that's why she's so hard to connect with people, which is why her relationship with Hulk is just so awesome. Well, because Bruce is a better way to say it, but I mean, I don't think she's in love with Hulk as much as Bruce, but there's both. Yeah. Yes, so. When they're fighting at the top, and when you first saw it, who did you think was going to go down?
I knew.
You knew it was going to be her?
And I'll tell you why. This movie does such a beautiful, beautiful job, and you see it with Captain America and Iron Man, and I'll talk about that a little bit later because I'm sure it'll come up. But every character kind of merges into another character, and they learn from one another. So Natasha has been this person who's never had a family, who's had this dark, horrible history, and Clint has had this perfect family and things are going really well for him.
That he's been absent from, yeah.
And so when they merge to each other, and she starts to really, really appreciate like what she's never had. Yeah. And then he, of course, is avenging his family and doing these horrible things. And the same thing happens with Captain America and Iron Man. Mm-hmm. And it's such a perfect ending because the fact that like Captain America has spent his whole life being selfless, and you know, Iron Man on the other end of that has spent a whole life being selfish. Right. And the fact that they can learn from each other and learn that like they're so like it's important to take time for yourself, like Captain America finally learns, and it's important to also like give yourself as much as you can to Pepper and to Morgan, and it's just. And
I think Iron Man understanding that, you kind of see that in his relationship with Peter, mm-hmm. where part of him is just like, I want you. You're awesome, and you can do a lot, and I love mm-hmm. that you idolize me, and you have a lot of skill.
Don't become me.
But and he's like, and also take time and be a kid. Mm-hmm. You know, just be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. You know,
he becomes the father not only to Morgan but to Peter that he wanted. You know, that he needed, and that closure with his dad.
Yeah, circling back, just my final thing on Hawkeye. Yes. I really like that they set it up where they both have bad marks on their ledger, because in the Endgame we got to really see Hawkeye's dark moments, but Natasha had all that exposition before from the previous movies, and so it did set up that conflict of like, oh my gosh, there's like, who's it gonna be? They both have good arguments to like throw the other person over and
or let the other person
both just they knew they wanted to make that sacrifice.
And I think either one of them making the jump would have been satisfying to the audience.
Yeah, exactly.
And they both could have, because they're both regular guys. Regular people.
That's what made the moment so good, because like you don't know what's going to be, and it could go either way.
And either way, it's just ridiculously tragic that she never had that opportunity, or that opportunity was
when he shows up on the platform without Natasha, it's just like
that's the thing. Yeah.
Pain.
So what? Finishing. So he shoots the arrow and everything. She's down, and he says, "Say goodbye, tell my family I love them," whatever. Which is confidence that this is going to work, and I love that, because his whole thing was like, at the end, he's like, I wish there was a way I could tell her that we won, but he was like, you know, proactively like.
Well, and he always believes in the team, and like, if you were just a regular dude who like, I love when he says in Ultron, like, I have a bow and arrow, like, come on, you know what I mean?
Yeah. He's such a good character. No one cares about. Anyway,
I do.
So he runs and he jumps, and they stop with that slow motion jump off the cliff, and then. Suddenly it cuts to her grapple, and you're like, oh my gosh. And then she goes through, takes him out of it, because I can't figure out exactly what she does, but she has a little gauntlet thing, hooks it to his belt or somewhere. He looks and he's like, I'm stuck. Yeah. Like, I can't just give it back to her and jump. Like, he's like, I'm now attached to the wall. Yeah. And then the look, and her line is, just let me go. Because he's holding her wrist, she's not holding anything, and he needs to let her go. And I love about that is that he doesn't do it. She finally kicks off the wall, which he could have done the whole time, but she wanted him to let go. Yeah. This was therapeutic for him, too. Yeah. And so he couldn't do it. He's like looking, just trying to figure out anything, trying to reach down to grab with his other arm, not doing it. And she's like, sorry, pretty much, and just kicks off. Yeah. And then she falls. You don't see the fall, but you watch his reaction, and he turns away and then turns back down. But like, and then just shows her, just like he did Gamora. Yeah. They did Gamora, right? If I remember. Yep. It's like, oh, it's so beautiful. And then he looks up, and then poof, the clouds light up and everything. You have no idea what happened. Then he just wakes up in the pool. Mm-hmm. And then he doesn't exactly know how it all happened. But then he just looks down, sees a stone, and then he sobs. Yeah. Travels back to the platform, and everyone shows up. And they're like, did it work? And they're counting briefcases and stones and rocks and stuff. And then suddenly he just jumps down, and everyone's looking at him. And then Banner looks at him. He's like, where's Nat?
Yeah. The only thing more painful than losing your best friend is having to be the one to go back. And you know what I mean?
Tell everyone else you lost.
And that was just, and you were, and I love, they set everyone up. If you notice, when they first went off, they went, you're here, and they went to everyone, they got into their little predicaments with their missions, and then it cut to each one of them, and then it cut and let everyone resolve everything. His was last. So you'd have that moment when they all came back together. And then, him
to stab you in the gut.
Yeah, just for that. Because if there's that moment with Hulk where he's just looking and just processing. He doesn't even say anything.
Especially because Hulk, that's the thing is, Hulk has finally come to terms with both sides of him. And so you get that little glimpse of like, okay, so what's going to happen? You know, because me as a woman, that's my first thing always is like, okay, finally we're going to have him and Natasha. And then there it goes.
He tried so hard to bring her back with the snap, too.
And he did. And when he was trying to explain
the guy in the Red Skull said he couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is interesting.
Anyway,
I'm a big, like...
Probably
sorry. I'm a big comic book fan, so I feel confident that this won't be the last we see of Natasha in the
she's in her
Soul
own
World.
movie.
Yeah, she's
Well,
got
and the more you learn about, like, the Soul World, the more hope you have for Natasha. So.
Awesome. Well, there's a cliffhanger for going. And it's a little... homework assignment for them to go research it because I have no idea what you're talking about. So anyway,
I'm a devotee to the comics.
Well, in the comics, they bring everyone back to life.
Yeah.
That's no spoiler.
Nobody
well,
does.
in a different way, yeah. Okay, so that leads into the next one. This one just crushed me. After they get back, and that right after in that next scene, they don't know if it worked for sure. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that the only two that start walking away trying to figure it out is Hawkeye and Ant-Man. Scott.
Oh, yeah.
And he goes out and he sees birds.
The birds flying.
He's just watching birds flying around. And I'm like, that's just an interesting visual for him. And he thinks to himself, I think it worked.
Yeah.
But Hawkeye answers the phone. He hears the phone ringing. Now, first of all, let's put aside why does he have the same cell phone number as he's been Ronin? Why does she have a phone that's still on a plan that's active at the house 5 years later in this whatever? Let's put all that stuff aside.
It's fixed.
But he's there, and they don't have. I mean, how do they know? How do you test it? You know. And so then the phone rings, and he goes and he sees her, and it shows the camera. It shows the phone with her picture, and he approaches it, whatever her name is, Hawkeye's wife, Mrs. Hawkeye. And he approaches it, and he gets it, and then he hears her voice, and he doesn't have a chance to respond. And he does, but he's just so in tears. Like you imagine, she just woke up, has no idea what's going on. Like, where's my husband? You know, and then he's like ready to break and just start crying. That after he just lost his best friend, he just got his wife back, and that was the sacrifice. She said, "Tell him yourself. You know, you tell him you love him. Here's the phone."
Yeah, and to have to do. I was just gonna say, well, Doctor Strange, you know, because Peter Parker explains that like Doctor Strange told them everything that had happened. It's been 5 years, whatever. Yeah. And since he has the gift of time travel, he could. I mean, I don't know that he would. I don't know how much he cares, but he could. I mean, go and explain it to every single person in the universe.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He could.
Or put it in the news. Yeah.
Yeah.
they'll figure out when there's like big 5-year age differences betwing everyone, and people don't talk about that. You know. And
I know. I'm anxious to see. Sequel, I was gonna say who's still in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what your whole list is, but I think the Russos gave very special attention to Hawkeye in this movie because he was left out entirely of Infinity War.
Yeah.
And so they just gave him so many satisfying and amazing, powerful acting moments. Of when he loses family at the beginning, when he's Ronin, all these moments, and this one when he picks up the phone, like they're all just like, they wrench your heart.
I think he's kind of the... I don't know, not the voice of the audience, I wouldn't say that. But
he's a regular guy.
He's a regular guy.
He's that guy. Like, if any of us knew that a horrible thing was coming, like, we hope that we could...
Yeah, let's not say regular, but he's... Yeah.
But that's the thing, like, we would hope that we could, you know, just, like, say, sorry, honey, take care of the kids, we gotta go fight the world, you know, like...
Yeah. And the added layer in there is, earlier when she's talking to him as Hawkeye, or not Hawkeye, excuse me, as Ronin... You know, and she's like, we may have a way to fix it, or whatever the line is. When he turns in, he's like, he almost doesn't want to fix it because he's gone so dark. He says,
"Can you explain that to your wife?"
Don't give me hope, because I think it's not. I don't think it's like I don't want to fix it. It's more I don't want to get my hopes up. Yeah. I don't want there to have hope and then be disappointed because I can't do it again.
Yeah.
And I think it was just all this way, and that's why he's been doing what he's been doing. And just like all these people died, and you're here killing people and hurting people. Why did you deserve to survive? You know. Yeah. So he's just cleaning up all the bad people that made it.
Yeah.
Hawkeye is awesome. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And that's the thing. That's the true strength of Hawkeye is that he. I know this is just a Hawkeye love fest.
Sorry, no, I just laughed because I was thinking of that fan made poster where everyone in the Infinity War poster was Hawkeye's head. Did you ever see that?
No.
So funny because he was left out of the movie. So.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I don't know. I think that That's the incredible thing about Hawkeye is because you just trust that he's going to be there. He just has faith in the team, and so you finally see what his Achilles heel is, and it's his wife and kids,
and his like being absent from a lot of the stories isn't because they don't have anything to do with him. He was with his family, and that just adds to all the weight of what he lost. Mm-hmm. Fine, if I don't have my family, then I'm just going to cut loose. Yeah.
Well, and plus, can you imagine the relief of like, so you have this ability, and so you feel obligated to like protect the world, and then he's on house arrest, and he finally is like forced to spend time with his family, and so and he's happy, and he's teaching his daughter archery, and then
this first test, when they test if the time travel even works, he goes back to his farm. Mm-hmm. And he's like so excited, he's running up to the house, and then he like hears his daughter, calls his daughter, and she comes down, and then he goes back.
Yeah, I
knew.
Like,
she comes down, and you're like, oh my gosh.
That's one of those things. Like I said, I'm obsessed with the comics, and I knew like in order for him to become that, I knew that that's what would happen. They'd snap away his whole family, and I think most of us, even who didn't know the comics, like saw it immediately, and we were just like, no, why did that have to?
Yeah. Okay, and I'm glad they hit you with that in the beginning. Was his family, because that really like is to remind us. Okay, here's the stakes. Yeah, let's go. Yeah. All right, so there's number 6 was Hawkeye's wife calling. That hug in that moment just reminded me of one I didn't get on there, but I just wanted to mention. There's a lot I mentioned, obviously, but the Scott. When he comes back, whatever, have your complaints about the rat stepping on the button, whatever. But
I'm so glad. It's so fitting for Ant-Man.
I love that.
It's so fitting. Like, of course, fine. That's how he came
back. Of course
it is. It's calling.
It would have been hilarious if it was an ant, but it's whatever.
Oh, there you go.
It doesn't matter.
5 years.
Yeah.
So.
And well, whatever. That's not the point. But when he gets up and he's like, what happened? He was just, in the quantum physics zone, whatever it's called. And he was the Phantom Zone.
Yeah,
and he was just in there, and he came back, and everyone's gone. And then he goes and finds the monuments that had the names, and he finds his name, and he's just looking for. All he cares about is Cassie. Yeah. He says, Cassie, where's Cassie? And he's like, couldn't find her. He sees his name, so he runs back home, and she's still there. Yeah. And that hug between him and his daughter just lingered so long. And you're like, we're 5 minutes in here, I'm already tearing up, right? Yeah. It's just like, oh my gosh.
When he says you're so big, it hits you. That like he lost all of those years in prison, and then he loses 5 more.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Right? Oh my gosh.
I know. I'm just such a mom. I'm just like, that's all.
That's all he cared. That's all he fought for.
Yep.
In the first one, he was just trying to make himself
to get back to. That's Ant-Man's whole thing. It's just back to
And the second
Cassie,
movie is like, hey, I know you have all this mission, but I can't get in trouble again. I need to be home.
Yep.
Okay, that's 6.5. So anyway, okay, number 5. There's all this setup, and I think everything else happens. Most of this happens after that point. So we did kind of go chronologically. I didn't intend on that, but they get the fight. So first of all, after Hawkeye's phone call, then they get hit with the missiles from Thanos' ship. They say Thanos. They say it differently in the movie.
Sometimes.
Anyway, but they bomb it, and I thought they were all dead. What I thought was they got it to work. Hawkeye's wife calls. Tragic. They all died, and now the other Avengers who are back, they're going to have to finish the mission. I thought that's what was going to happen.
I'd be pissed if that was
where you just watch
your heroes. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, maybe some survive, but I was like,
especially since how the heck did Nebula configure that? Like that.
Yeah.
She's a genius.
How did she just push some buttons and then here comes Thanos' entire fleet?
I like to think that it's very well labeled. I mean, like Hulk is in charge. He's a very smart. Maybe he was just like. So this is the process in this.
I mean, I guess Thanos has his scientists, and they have all sorts of people. They probably figured it out.
She is a computer.
I guess. Yeah.
I really like to think that it was just like press the star, then press the triangle, then press the circle, and
very intuitive.
Well,
I think so.
I mean, Spider-Man does make that point. This suit is very intuitive. Like Tony's tech is very intuitive.
Yeah, and also, whatever. Rocket also helped design it. So Rocket's from her section of the universe too, and then also she gives him the time. Well, never mind. I was going to say because who knows how long it was before Thanos came back.
Yeah, they could.
But she came back with him.
Jump into the right point.
Well, maybe she did. Yeah, that's possible. Anyway, theories aside, Karina, you can You can speculate on that later on. Okay, but they get there. The place gets bombed, and they fight their way out of the Rumble. I think someone should have died there. That was a little too convenient for everyone to survive that. That was pretty crazy. And these are all the regular humans, by the way, who survived this club. But whatever. Don't want to ruin the movie. So they climb out, and then they have their fight. And then you have Thanos. I don't know how I'm saying it. Thanos has hammered them, and he's defeated each of them one by one. They're all at the end. And then he has the symbol of all of this, Captain America. He's hashed his shield to nothing.
Yeah.
And then he's down. And then you have Thanos, who I like Thanos as a villain in this one in a way more than Thanos, because they're two different characters, the Thanos in the last one, because this is the one where he's like, okay, apparently what I've been driving to do this whole time didn't work, and now this is personal. I'm going to enjoy destroying your planet, this annoying planet. And Captain America stands up, and when he did that, and he's sitting there with his broken shield, all I could think of was him in the alley picking up the garbage can lid against the bullies. He's like, I'm outnumbered. I can't win this, but I am never going to not fight. It's the right thing to do. And then the Tony on your left.
Yeah.
And then the portal opens. And then out comes Black Panther, because that was the next biggest moneymaker. And then comes out Falcon, flies in there. And then he's just kind of out. But then Thanos' look, when all the portals, he's like, and he didn't like charge or stop. He's like, whoa, let's see what's going on. And then they all come out. Yes, it's very tactical. So but yeah, so that moment where the realization, one, that yes, it did work for sure, because he didn't answer Hawkeye's phone. He didn't really know what happened, but just it worked. And not only did it work, but they're here.
Yeah. And
all these faces of people that he had missed for 5 years. It's not like it just happened like we just saw the movie. 5 years he's been thinking and remembering and mourning over this loss. Now here they all come, and he looks at his Avengers, and I can remember what was the line in the first Avengers? Tony says it. He says, we may not be able to defend the planet, but we're going to avenge it, or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, you know what? This is the end, and they can't defend what's happened, but, we're going to avenge what you did.
Yeah.
So, Avengers assemble. And he just says it with such just passion.
Yeah. And it's so earned.
That was the most earned moment in cinematic history to say such a
cheesy line.
Cliche line.
A cheesy line.
That was perfect.
Avengers assemble. If you saw that on the comic book, you're like, well, that's okay. But for him to say it, bleeding and just bruised, broken shield with his
Thor's hammer.
And it's not like you're like, Avengers Assemble, like they say on the commercials for McDonald's or whatever. But he's just like, just everything. Everything that he is now inspired this whole army of people here from all these different places. And, as Tony said, in a whole galaxy now, here to fight evil. That's all it was. It was protecting their planet against evil. They already brought it back and defend whatever. They could have flown off with the gauntlet and escape, but no, we're making a stand.
Yeah.
That's what Captain America has always been about.
Yeah.
So when he said that, I didn't fully appreciate that moment. I didn't realize that he had never said it before. Mm-hmm. I didn't catch that because I'm not an Avengers comic reader.
He almost said it at the end of Age of Ultron.
A sweet little wink is when he says Avengers. And then
credits.
Yeah.
Age of Ultron.
See, I didn't know that was a thing, because you can tell by my wall, that's not my patriotic superhero. But I love Captain America, but he, when he said that was gripping. The moment was cool. Mm-hmm. And people describe the way they shot that. It's a big splash page that you get in the comics. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
And
Howard the Duck was even in that show.
I heard that, and I didn't see him. I was even watching for him today, and I couldn't see him, so I have to Google it later.
You have to pause it.
Well, the interesting thing too, not to diverge too much, but to imagine, so when somebody dies in our typical lives or something like that, you go through the 5 stages of grief. Hopefully you come to acceptance at the end. But to know that you may potentially, maybe, have the power to bring them back, how do you grieve? How do you go through something like that? And so for Captain America, for Natasha especially, for a few of these others who really are like, how do I wrap my brain? They're not going to come to terms with it. They're not going to do it. They're just going to...
He's always got hope.
Exactly. And that's what Captain America is. He's the hope of it all.
Yeah.
And so...
He was the inspiration. And that was his whole job in his first movie, was inspire the troops.
Well, and I think that's why it's, part of him as a character is that he did come back to life.
Yeah.
And so he... knows, and he knows what it is to lose somebody permanently, and he knows, like, to just always have that hope.
Yeah.
And so that little on your left, it's just such a gratifying
and I just watched Winter Soldier, and just that was his first interaction with Falcon, and just
it's too beautiful.
It is. So that's Captain Marvel. Captain America's that's one that got me. But okay,
I ugly cried for a while.
Okay, so then so that's all, and then they go into the battle, and then my number 4 is actually like I said, this may not be in perfect order, but it's fine right here. Number 4, Thanos has the gauntlet. Tony grabs him. All the lead up, every hero has gone down. Kind of, they were all on him at once, and then defending the gauntlet. There was this whole spray of the battle, and then you had him take down Thor. Thor had his one-on-one with him. Then Cap had his one-on-one. He had him down. Captain Marvel came. He finally got the gauntlet. He was about to snap, and Captain Marvel, holds it until he pulls off the Power Stone, or the purple, whatever the purple one is.
Yeah, that was a cool move. I love that
just move. Full force. And people are like, she didn't do anything. Are you kidding? She took the entire...
That's important.
That's crazy.
That's a big deal.
Out of it, and he was about to do it, and then Tony looks up. Now, here's what I thought here. I'm always like writing the endings of the movies as I watch them, and that's why I get disappointed sometimes. But he pulls off the stone, and then it cuts to Tony standing up because he's been out of it. And then he looks over at Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange holds up his little weird hand,
one finger,
and he does that. I thought he wasn't like, oh, this is it. He didn't do that. He does so subtly. I thought he was about to open a portal.
Oh no!
And my brain thought it was a Soul Stone. I thought he took off the Soul Stone. Tony was gonna be warped to the cliff.
Yeah.
Sacrificed to put the thing back, and I thought that was what he was going to do, to undo the power of the gauntlet. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. No, it's fine. That wasn't a better ending, but he goes on, grabs him, and my kids were like, well, how did he do that? When we watched it. And, okay, so the nanotech technology is his. If it wasn't the nanotech, which I've been making fun of for a long time, it couldn't have worked that way. But Thanos snaps, and he realizes the stones are gone. It's the same gauntlet. He didn't switch gauntlets, which I thought the first time. It's just they moved them from their hand to his hand.
Gauntlets into Tony's gauntlet.
Right.
Yep.
So they move, and then he's like, oh, what's his line? I'm inevitable. That was his line. I love that. And then Tony stands up and just staring him in the eyes. A lot could have happened right there. And I'm like, hey, why is he hesitating? He should snap, because anything, he can get hit or attacked or whatever. But at the same time, you have to realize he knows he's going to die. Mm-hmm. And he's sitting there processing. You don't just do that. You have to be ready for it. And he's just ready, and he says, in all of his arrogance and passion, but I'm Iron Man. Cuts away. And just that moment, and then goes right into his death. This was all one big moment. Because, of course, I didn't know where the tears were going, but... He snaps. Everything just slowly disintegrates around him. And then he just falls down and just, leans up against a pile of rubble. And then the first one there is Falcon. Right? No, not Falcon.
War Machine.
War Machine flies in there, and he's just holding his hand. And it just reminded me of when War Machine fell at Sky in Civil War. He was right there. Mm-hmm. And
Spider-Man comes in.
And Spider-Man comes in. Spider-Man is just
and
holding him.
Nobody writes better than the Russo. I mean, they're at the tops. And if you think about it, like you said, that processing moment, if you look at what it is, Iron Man's big thing that made Iron Man who he is his relationship with Howard Stark.
Right.
His relationship with his father. And if you look at, Thanos, he's a guy who is just all about the goal. He's just, career-oriented, you could say. He sacrificed his child for his career, you could say. And so... I think that moment of him saying, I am Iron Man, I think that was a connection with his father. And the fact that he finally got closure with his own father, and he became the father that he needed his whole life. Yeah. I think that was just a delicious moment.
Yeah, and the thing is Iron Man, when he hugged his dad, and that was on my list, but a very, very critical moment. When he hugged his dad and said thank you, awkwardly,
Yeah.
He turns and he says, for everything you're doing for America, whatever he says. That wasn't just a blow-off line. If you think about Hulk, wouldn't have been Hulk without his help in the Gamma Project. Yep. The Pym, formula. He was part of that. The Avenger Initiative, or the super soldier serum.
Sure.
And then everything with Tony. He wouldn't have had the arc reactor that saved his life. He put that together in Iron Man 2. His dad had a piece of every piece of part of the Avengers.
His father gave him his family.
Yes, and he did.
Appreciated who it is, and he gave him all of that. Just not the way that Tony needed.
Right. It wasn't domestic bliss at home. But his dad was working on something, in his own way, and that was so incredible to watch him process that while his dad was talking about his unborn son, and Tony to be thinking about it and applying it to him as if about himself. And he was like, this is not the man I know.
And the biggest part of that to me was how Howard said, like, I know I'm not as good a dad as I could be because I'm always looking out for myself instead of others. And so Tony coming to that moment where he like decides to put others in front of himself when he makes that snap, it's just the arc completes, and Tony truly sacrifices for his family, for everyone's families.
And it's just interesting that he finally, he's been 10 years, what is it, since the first Iron Man? Like, he's just been learning this lesson of, like, arrogance over and over and over and over and over. And it's finally Howard Stark who teaches it to him, to be selfless. Like,
and all, after everything.
Yeah.
And he's been maybe he hasn't been like selfless, but he's cared about others slowly the whole time.
Yeah.
As soon as he saw the ramifications of his company, and what that was doing to the world, he's like, "That's not what we're gonna do." And I'm gonna put an end. I'm gonna bring peace to the world.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna have fun my way doing it the whole time. Now he has a daughter. He's on a farm. He's a changed man from this one, from the last movie, and it just that closure with his dad just really just brought out.
Yeah.
Just everything. But when he hugged him and thanked him, that's what he was thanking him for, was all of those things. And he was and he's walked through the labs of Aaron, the storage of everything that he's been a part of, that makes the Avengers in their own pieces. It's just.
Well, I think also, I mean, everybody, after you become a parent, you start to kind of see, like, of course the failings of your own parents you see your whole life, but you start to see how difficult it is, and like how hard it is just to wake up at 2:00 in the morning just to do any of those things,
right?
And so the fact that he had any of it, I think, you start to, I don't know, you appreciate it more, because Tony, he just has this chip on his shoulder and he just likes to be so extra, but like,
which was his dad. He was never good enough for his dad, and now he sees that, like, and he tells his dad, he says, it's Morgan. Gonna be okay. He says, it's gonna be okay. That they're on this mission of hope, and he's just like, Dad, I know you're stressed, there's so much going on, and he's like, just keep doing what you're doing, it's gonna be okay. And he's worried about his kid, and it's so good. Anyway, that was it. So that's 3.5. But no, his death, the whole death scene, I mean, leading into the funeral, and as soon as Pepper laid down the little memorial thing in the water and had the proof that Tony has a heart, I was like, don't do that. So bad.
It's so indicative of their relationship. It's just, it's so
his perfect. And Pepper. But Pepper comes, and this is all part of the death scene. So Tony's there, and Tony's like panicking as a kid. He is so good. Tom Holland's so good right here. And then Pepper just gently pulls him aside. Not because she needs to get in there, but it's like, it'll be fine. And she looks at him. She stops and gives him a second, that she, as like a mother, it's okay. And then she leans in and she just holds him, and she's like, and she gets the status reading, and it's like, no, we're done. But she just looks at him, and she's just processing everything that they've gone through as a couple, and everything. She's watched him all these years fighting, and she even said earlier, getting you to stop was never anything I was good at, and now he finished it, he's done with everything, and now she needs him to stop. And she says, it'll be fine, we'll be okay. And she lets him go.
That's such an important moment, and I mean, for a million reasons, but that was one of my big moments too, is because so often in movies, like, guy dies, woman becomes hysterical, but I think to myself as a wife, if my husband was dying, like, that would be me. I'll cry later. Like, you have to
be strong for him.
You don't want him to feel guilty in his last moments. And also, like, I told you that I wrote like a huge, cause I'm obsessed with the comics, like I said, but I was a little upset that we didn't get more of Rescue, which is Pepper Potts' kind of alter ego when she's in an iron suit.
Right.
And anyway, because
I nothing
thought
in this really.
Well, and I'm like, oh, I think she's gonna go and rescue, because he said in a commercial, like, with no hope of rescue, and I'm like, oh, that's her. She's gonna go and save him somehow. Like, it's gonna be fine. But the fact that she isn't literally in a suit, you know, except for the battle, like, she isn't literally in a suit. She's spent her whole life rescuing Tony Stark.
Yeah.
She's spent all of it, and
really
even
has.
in his last moments, like, that's what she's all about. Is just like,
she saved him. How many times has she saved him?
I mean, if you think about, like, not even just like the business and stuff too.
One.
Yeah. Not even just like his life, but
and people always give, you know, Gwyneth Paltrow a hard time, but we love Pepper, and she's just a fun dynamic to his character, you know, because he is just so flavorful, and he's haughty, and he's a womanizer, and she levels him no matter what he's doing. And even in the first movie, we just watched the relationship.
He's in love with her from the beginning, you know.
I love it.
And then he's such a womanizer. First one, he's such a womanizer, but like when he sees her at the party in the first one, when they go to the benefit, he can't even talk. It's so great how they are. But anyway, their dynamic has just been so incredible over the years, and I want to go back and watch their relationship again. Yeah. Not just knowing how it ends, but just like I appreciate it more. And that's the biggest thing, was like she was such a big part of him. Even when she was out of the picture for a lot of the movies, she wasn't really. Not for him. And for her to be there at the end.
All right, whoever's watching out there, I want to see some fan-made movie of just Tony Pepper's relationship throughout the whole MCU.
Just
to cut it all together.
Just to cut it all together. Oh, that'd be beautiful.
There's the eulogy scene where he's talking to Pepper, but just his whole thing with Pepper, and the opening sequence where he's basically saying goodbye. You know, if you ever see this, and she said in the last movie, he's like, "Don't go. You know, I don't want you to go." And in her mind, you know, there's so many other superheroes here. They're superheroes, not just a guy with a suit, you know. And she knows what he's capable of, and she has a suit. But it's like, that's not what makes Tony amazing. It could be anybody else's job,
yeah. Like,
so may one for her, may one for
literally anyone else. Like, somebody else should do it.
Yeah. There's a point where she's like, but he spent everything, and I don't know if anyone else would or could have done. And even Doctor Strange said that. And she didn't know that, but whatever.
Well, that's the thing. Doctor Strange is the linchpin of it all. You know what I mean? And I think people kind of undervalue him in this movie because he knew the exact minute that Ant-Man would be in the quantum realm. Yeah. He knew the exact, you know, everybody's capabilities. He's seen it all. I mean, there's a joke going around the internet that, like, you think of all of the money that the movie has grossed, but if you think about it, that he's seen it 14 million times or whatever the number he says, like, but he's seen it all, and so he knows exactly when it's going to happen that way. Yeah. And so it's important that everything happens exactly the way it should.
One way is how they'd win. You knew that's what Doctor Strange meant, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one. Okay, so Death of Iron Man, that was just, I mean, that whole thing just hooked together, but there was so many relationships that just tied right there. Yeah. But, okay. So, let's talk about number 3. Let's talk about Captain America. Now, not just the scene where he's on the bench, where he came back as an old man, which I love that. I love that so much. And I love how I didn't notice it much the first time because I had no idea what was going on. First time you see it. But they stop and then they see him, and then, what's his name? Bucky says, "You go ahead. It's okay." He goes, which is a thing of the comics, is the comic fans are like, hey, who's gonna take up the shield, you know, between the two of them. And then he turns and nods at him again. He's like, it's okay. Like, and he nods like, it's audience, it's okay. You're gonna take up the shield. It's fine. But for him to go over and talk to him, and it's just so soft and compassionately with each other, and he's just like, it's almost like he's watching him die, but he's not dying. But he's like, he's processing everything too. He's like, here's the story. He went back and he decided he was going to live the life that he gave up, like you said. Yeah. And if anyone, he deserves that. Yeah. You know? And that's a conflict that comes up in Superman stories a lot too, is like, he's like, can I not have what I want? I can't settle down and be happy with a relationship and have kids and just have a family because I have this higher calling. And his dad, Jor-El, is never condoning it in a lot of the stories. And so that's just his conflict. But Captain America never had that opportunity. You know, he He was jerked out of his life and thrown into a hero seat. And what makes that moment beautiful, it's not just that he sacrificed it, but he spent that time and he made that sacrifice. At the very beginning in his movie, he said he was the martyr. You know, he had to take the plane down, and he said, "Tell Peggy I'm not going to make it to our dance or whatever." Ugh. And just that one, I mean, I teared up at that in the first movie, as hokey as it was. But that moment, he goes down and he's like, he sacrificed everything, and now this is his second chance, and he was pulled out of that, thrown in hero seat, and now he's been trying to adapt this whole time. He's been trying to get used to finding who he is in this world. This is not the world he lived in.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine how comfortable he was going back and finding her. It'd be an awkward conversation. Hang on, just we can't go to New York on this day. We can't do this. Let me explain. You know, I thought you crashed the plane. You know, well, let me explain. You know, I wonder how much he told her. But whatever, they lived their life, and he was able to fulfill. But just the moment of them dancing, is what did it. And the music is just, it's that old antiquitous music. It's just classical, just an old radio. It's just so staticky. But they're just sitting there, like a record player. But they're just sitting there, zooms in on the window in their house, and there's just this normal street, and he gets to live a normal life that he
in
earned.
A small house with a staticky radio, just with the woman
just
that he
dancing.
loves.
Just that's all he wanted was to get back and dance, and not to dance, but that what the dance represented. And he forfeited everything back then to be a hero. He's always been a hero. And now he finally got a reward for that.
Yeah.
Now, you know, Falcon's like, I'm trying to imagine, I can't deal with a world without Captain America because of what you represented. Him at the front of the lines when he said, Avengers Assemble, that was for the price of his life with Peggy.
Yeah.
And that's all anyone wants. That's the most important thing. You know, it's just like the prophets say, no other success can compensate for failure in the home. Well, he didn't have a home, so it doesn't matter if you defeat Thanos and his armies. You didn't have successful. No, but he that was just touching. I think that was the most beautiful way to end that movie. Yeah. It's just like, we're done.
Well, and I kind of chewed on that for a while too, about like Falcon versus Bucky Barnes. And honestly, if you think about the juxtaposition between Captain America, who was like fighting tooth and nail, lying all the way he could to get to the draft, and then Bucky Barnes, who was drafted and then kidnapped and then brainwashed, like they both just deserve to rest. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And so I don't know. Whereas like, you know, Falcon, like he's young and he's a soldier and, you know, he's got that kind of personality for it. But it was just such a nice moment where it's just like, just let Bucky and Captain America just be old men together. Like just let it happen. Right. You know?
And that's the thing. Bucky, like he said at another point, he's like, you know, after everything I've done, I don't deserve, you know.
Well, and they all live with that like survivor's guilt and guilt for what they've done. Yeah. And I mean, especially Bucky Barnes, and like having to work with Tony Stark, who, I mean, we all know the history between Howard Stark and Bucky Barnes, but it's just because I thought about that. I'm like, why not Winter Soldier? But he needed to rest. Yeah. Like, just let him go.
Yeah, for me, what was so beautiful about that moment was the contrasting arc of Iron Man and Captain America, because that's how it's been building from the whole MCU. It's just been, well, Captain's like, we gotta step in and do our part to save people, and Iron Man's like, no, we need to make sure that, you know, everyone's okay, but we want to go home. You know, we still got to look out for ourselves. Yeah. And so by the end, is like,
they met in the middle.
Which
was the beautiful parallel to like,
their handshake in this movie was a good moment. Oh my gosh. Just after our last 3 movies.
Well, and that's the thing, Civil War, just that they're so fundamentally different people. Mm-hmm. And then they finally, I mean, it took Thanos to bring them, to make them learn from one another. Yeah.
And at the same time, you know, what the world really needed is both perspectives.
Yep.
It took both sides. Yeah. And you saw that in Infinity War. Anyway, Captain America just he's just perfect. Yeah, you know, he really is. Like, and that's why when he gets the hammer, you're like, who else, you know, has the most pure virtuous heart like he does? But it's like he earned, you know, after everything, he decided he was going to live his life. So that was a beautiful ending for him, and it was a cool way to write Chris Evans out of it without killing him.
Yep. Yeah. So that he can go on to direct other Marvel works.
Maybe.
Did you know
Is that what he's doing?
Maybe.
He's in talks to do it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And he's he could pop it in for a cameo anytime. He's whatever, because there's all the theories on how Captain Marvel or Captain America was doing, or what was going on during that time.
Which timeline he was actually in.
Yeah. So anyway. But my favorite theory was that whenever it showed Peggy in the future talk about the man, like, we never saw who she was married to in bed. But she did mention they had a kid. I can't remember. There was something that kind of broke it a little bit in Winter Soldier as I rewatched it. But so theoretically, he could have been there the whole time. Yeah, he could have. Anyway, okay. I think I'm gonna flip these.
Then Sharon would be his niece. There was a weird little moment.
Okay, so I'm gonna flip my number 1 and 2 right now as I'm thinking about it, because I think I cried the most. No, I'm gonna keep it the same. Okay, no, number 1, number 2. Peter's hug. So going back to the daddy issues with Stark and his dad, and he just got that closure, and all he wanted was acceptance and love from his dad, and he never had it. He felt like he wasn't a priority. Tony kind of maybe felt that way about Spider-Man, or about Parker or Peter, when he saw his picture. A couple times he looked at that picture, and he was just like, he's like regretting how he kind of treated him. But he wasn't like mean to him. He was just trying to protect him. But his dad was just
never
the same
mean
way.
to him. He was
yeah. He was just like, I have other things that are more important to do.
Be a grown up.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And with that, form of negligence, there's a loss that the child is feeling, and he just finally got closer to that with his dad just now.
Yeah.
And he's just lived with this regret. He told Spider-Man to stay. He had his suit take him back down, but the parachute. But he stowed away on Thanos' shuttle or whatever. Mm-hmm. He was with him the whole time. He let him be a part of that fight at the end, and he couldn't prevent the snap. And that's all they were fighting for. But like that moment, that was the most tragic death. Everyone I talked to, Spider-Man's death was the saddest one in the other movie. Mm-hmm. And when he just was like, he was so scared, like, I don't want. He died hugging Tony.
You have to know. So Spider-Man's, one of his great powers is his spidey sense. Yeah. He knows. He can feel what's coming before it's coming. And so obviously he's going to have that fear more than everybody else, who just kind of looks around like, what the F is going on?
And that's what Tony was watching, person to person, mm-hmm. But
Spider-Man
maybe
can feel it
much more sensational. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't think about that. So for for Peter to be feeling and experiencing that, and he also senses the danger of everyone else. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure, though he was isolated on this whole planet with just those 5 guys, but he was just like, I'm sure he sensed a great disturbance in the force,
Yep.
And then it was coming for him, and he was just, I don't want to go. He was scared. And Tony took that with him. And what else did he have to think about for however long he was sitting on the ship playing chess with what's her name? That was the last thing that happened to him that he was reflecting on this whole time. And now he's fought 5 years later to get it back, and the pain obviously didn't go away because he sees that picture in the beginning of the movie, and you can tell it's just still cutting at him. And just like Hawkeye picking up the phone and hearing his wife's voice, when he sees Spider-Man come in, and he's like all excited, oh, Mr. Stark, you look so crazy. And he's just like, normally when Peter's talking, he just wants to shut up, move on. And even in the car, that Peter, all he wanted was just a hug. He didn't have a father, and he lost his uncle, and now
he just loses
he's so now here's Tony, who's like his idol, and he doesn't give him the time of day. He just like kind of is like, can you talking to Happy, he's like, can I talk to Mrs. Stark? He's just so needy, and it's beautiful because it's natural. He's just this kid. And he comes, he's just so excited to be telling Tony about it. And then Tony is just like listening, but not listening. And he just like grabs him. And that expression on Stark's face, I think that was Robert Downey Jr.'s best performance in this movie. Was that look, just that trembling. He's here. He won't shut up. I freaking love it, and then just grabs him. And then, Spider-Man's like, oh, this is nice. It's just like, that moment just killed me the first time I saw it. You love their relationship, and you can just see that closure, that no matter what happens, I brought Peter back. I think if he brought Peter back, that's all that, I mean, that would have been enough for Tony, you know, no matter what else happened. I mean, other than he wanted to not lose his daughter, but that was just such an important moment in that relationship.
Well, the
it's
guilt
just a couple
and what Spider-Man represents too. It's like Spider-Man is everything that he should have been when he was 18. You know what I mean? Like he's just the future of like selflessness and kindness and optimism and just everything that Tony Stark, you know, probably
Naivety,
wishes he could have been. Yeah. You know? And so I think that to bring that back to the world, because this is a world that's lived for 5 years without optimism, without naivety, like without all these beautiful things that Spider-Man, without humor, without youth, like it's gone. And so
have you seen the trailer for the new Spider-Man?
No, I didn't want to watch it yet. I'm just too scared. I'm too scared.
There's just a beautiful moment where
I heard it starts like kind of right after this movie.
Yeah, there's a lot. In the new trailer, it's like full of some spoilers for Endgame, and so it's got like moments where you can really see Peter struggling that Iron Man's gone in his life now. So it's like,
maybe I can't see that movie.
Yeah, it's gonna pick up right where
that one just cut me deep.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, and like they have very similar lives if you think about it, because like they both had scientist fathers, and they both had father figures who left them. Yeah, and you know, and while Peter Parker, I mean, depending on which comic you read, his relationship with his dad before then was better, and Ben, of course, is a great role model taken away from him. Yeah. And it's just nice to see Spider-Man
out of guilt. Just like you know, part of what started Iron Man was that guilt from what his mind.
They all have it. You know what I mean? Like it's a beautiful quality of the Avengers is that they're people who've stepped up. That's how super villains are born. People who are like, I want to be super, but like people who step up.
All right, Avengers. My number one, cheeseburgers.
Oh my god!
I'm sorry. Yeah, there's a lot of moments that deserve to be on. We could have done a lot of runs, but when Happy's sitting there after the funeral,
okay, shut up.
That long pan was just a moment, but he's sitting there with his daughter, with Tony's daughter, not Happy's daughter. What is her name? I don't remember. Morgan.
There's a throw to the comics.
Is it? I didn't know that. Okay, you can tell me later.
But, man, anyway, doesn't matter.
Okay, so Happy's sitting there with Morgan, and she's just sitting there chilling. They're just out on the porch, and he just looks down, and you can tell Happy hasn't had a moment. He hasn't had a happy moment. Happy hasn't had a moment in this movie to have any focus on him other than he was there at the funeral. Yeah. But he's now, and so I think he must have been snapped. Because I don't think it showed him. But he wasn't there on the farm. Now he's back. Okay? So he's back because he looks the same. He doesn't look 5 years older. But he's sitting there and he's talking to Morgan. And he asks, he's like, are you hungry? And she's like, yeah. He's like, what do you want? And then she's like, a cheeseburger. And then Happy looks up. And he looks away because he's just like, that triggered it. And it reminded him. And I had to explain to I think this is the main test. If you talk to people who have seen the movie and they didn't really cry or didn't see what the big deal was, just ask them if they understood that reference. If they understood what cheeseburgers meant, they got it. If they didn't understand what that meant and had to have it explained to them, that's why they didn't connect. Oh no. Do you not?
I think I don't.
Oh no. Oh, let me explain.
It's from Iron Man.
Okay, so
I hated the first couple Iron Man.
Okay, well let me make you fall in love with it. Okay, so there's Tony, right? Yeah. He was in the cave, right? Beaten, tortured, you know, and he was like building this machine. Not the suit. I mean, he was building the suit, but he was being forced to like make a weapon that was going to cause mass destruction and murder. Like, and he realized that his weapons were already doing this. He gets out. Now I don't remember how long he was in there, if it even gives a date, but he gets back. He's left in the desert, and what's his name?
Yensid? No.
No, what's his buddy's name? Sam.
War Machine.
Yeah,
War Machine. Well, Rhodey. Yes, excuse me. Good job, Karina. So Rhodey, he's been gone, missing for dad. What's the word? Whatever. And then Rhodey finds him, and he's like wandering as a survivor, and he's in the desert. He's like mostly dead, right? Yeah. Picks him up, and he's like, he hugs him, and he's like, next time you ride with me. Yeah. You know, he's like so protective of him, and he can't believe he got his friend back. Gets him back, they fly back, and they land, and he's got his arm in a sling and everything. And you gotta think this is probably 10 20 hours later or something like that. So they probably call Pepper, and everyone's like news to the airport. He's alive.
Do you need a doctor?
And you get they come up with a he's like, get away. Are you serious with this? He gets him away.
That's right.
And he's just broken. And he looks at Pepper, and he's just like, he just wants to hurt, but he's just like so hurt, right? And he's still having all this PTSD, and he's just trying to deal with everything. And he's like, I want to have a press meeting right now, but first I want to stop for a cheeseburger. He's like, what? He's like, yeah, I want a good American cheeseburger, because he hasn't really eaten. But that cheeseburger wasn't just, and it was a Whopper. You know, of all the places to go get a cheeseburger, Whoppers are fine, but it's Tony Stark. He could have gotten whatever he wanted. Yeah, it was a Whopper. But like, that cheeseburger represented his being domesticated again, his comfort, that he's survival, is his real life. Him eating a Whopper meant he was alive and he was back. It was so much more than just an appetite, you know. And it wasn't. And then he gets back to the press conference.
End of the movie.
In the beginning. Yeah. But he's like, I'm just tired. Just sit down. Can we just all sit down? And he sits everyone down while he's biting into this Whopper, and it was just so. No, that's at the end is when he says that.
I feel like at the end he gets another cheeseburger. But I guess I'm wrong.
But he's just sitting there eating the burger, and and that's when he says, and he talks about his dad. He's like, well, I was talking about, I was thinking of my dad while I was gone. And he said, I never got to say goodbye to my father. Now he did. Well, he's eating this cheeseburger. And then he sits there and he says, that's right. I want our company is no longer going to be doing this. It's going to be, we're going to, help people, and we're going to do better things and work on energy or whatever. And that triggers the rest of that story. But like, that cheeseburger represented his being alive, survival, right? And he lived for it, but it was something that was helped cushioning him moving on to the next phase of his life, which led him to this amazing death. Yeah. Now, Happy's sitting there with his daughter, and he's like, what do you want? You want a cheeseburger? He's like, your dad liked cheeseburgers too, because that was the one thing he wanted when he survived. And Happy's just remembering that, and he says, I'm going to get you all the cheeseburgers you want.
Well, and that's the thing, and because I remember this now, it symbolizes being a survivor and then taking your father's legacy to the next level. Mm-hmm. And that's why, Jayson doesn't believe me, and so in the comics, Morgan, I'll just tell you now, Morgan is a man and no relation to Iron Man, but he's an Iron Man successor. Right. And there are so many great moments where Morgan, like, she puts on the mask, and there's a moment where she does that, and she says, I came to rescue you, and stuff like that. Like, there are so many nice moments that allude to Morgan down the line being this person. Of course, everybody, in the comics, everybody whose kids are,
they have they get whatever power.
They do whatever. But I just think it's, although Iron Man in the comics is like a lifelong bachelor, he just is a loser. He's so much better than this. But
they left the door open there.
Yeah, but anyway, it's nice to have that imagery.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful moment, because a 4-year-old,
she's coping. She's trying to figure it out.
It's such a different thing to cope as a 4-year-old as opposed to an adult, and it's just she wants a cheeseburger, and like.
And it doesn't mean anything to her.
It doesn't mean that much to her.
It's so funny, or it's just genetic.
It means so much to Happy, and it's like, it means so much to us. It's like,
And it's his, and when he says, I'm going to get you all the cheeseburgers that you want, that's his way of telling Tony, I'm going to take care of your daughter. Yeah. I'm going to, she's never going to want for anything. And you set this all up anyway, and everyone in the universe owes you. But that was just his realization of that. It just reminded, it was like, hey, let's get some lunch and cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
But it was like, it was therapeutic for him. Yeah. But all that, when he said that, I was like, that's like the most brilliant line of dialogue that they could have done.
They were so many dots. We didn't talk about Thor's mom very much. I guess we did, but just so many
think about dots. It, and I will say, so the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing about this movie, number 50, is just that afterward, after the whole world has been fought for, after half of the universe, what it boils down to, you see these scenes of like 2 or 3 people of just like, it's the relationships that
what
mattered.
Yeah.
That's, after literally the whole world was at stake. Yeah. It's just Happy and Morgan.
Yeah.
And, Falcon and Captain America. Like, it's just these little...
Wanda and was it Hawkeye with Wanda?
I think it's
they both lost. Or no, it was Bruce. Bruce lost.
Oh, yeah.
Bruce lost to Natasha, and Wanda lost Vision.
Yep.
And they were just both mourning there.
Yeah.
That moment was beautiful.
And just the fact that, like that's what matters at the end of all of it. It's like, and it's just, such good writing.
When you think about it, not a single one of those characters in this movie stepped up just because of nobility or heroism or anything like that. It was for those relationships. Mm-hmm. That's all it was. Well, even him, he was dealing with the loss of his friends and the responsibility. It wasn't just like, oh, people died, I need to save them. That was what he was talking to Natasha about in the beginning too, when she was coping with thinking about what Hawkeye was off doing and everything. And that's why he's like, maybe we need to let it go. Maybe we shouldn't be trying to defend. Like, people just need to move on. Yeah. And so that's where he was trying to press. But that's the thing is, it's like the scripture, by small and simple things are great things brought to pass. These simple little relationships is what saved the universe. Is what fought and defeated Thanos. Is what motivated and inspired these characters to stand up and fight through all of the odds for all their own little arcs, tethering together and ripping our hearts out doing it. That's what made the difference, and that's what the accomplishment of this movie is. When people are like, "What's so great about this movie?" That's what it is. Yeah. It is the heart and the spirit of these stories. Thing,
like all the big budget stuff, the fighting and all of the CGI and stuff like that. It's incredible. Nobody does Disney like Disney, but but ultimately, like what it comes down to is just it's formulaic for every movie. Like just when they love each other, when they learn from each other. Like, and it's true, and this is probably the best textbook example, because Iron Man and Captain America meet in the middle personality-wise, and they finally have appreciated this other quality about each other. And a lot of these other characters, like we said, do that too. Natasha and Clint, they finally, she doesn't want to be this feral cat anymore, and it's just...
The spectacle's not what it's about, it's the heart. Mm-hmm. And that cheeseburger moment reminds me, it reminded me when I was in the theater of the moment in Independence Day. And that's, huge spectacle, and a lot of people dog on that movie now, but back then that movie was...
It was a big deal.
Huge. Huge. And so, all that stuff going on, these huge characters and everything, but the moment that always gets me, if I go back and if I watch the movie from the beginning, is when Will Smith goes and finds his wife. And she has the first lady, and they get her back, and then it cuts to Bill Pullman running up with his daughter, and he's holding his daughter, and they're so excited to see her because they didn't know she survived, that she died. And he gets in there, and then the daughter's in there talking to mom while the doctor's like, she's internal bleeding, we can't do anything. And so he has to go in there processing this. He's missed her, and so many people are dying. It's like it's homicide everywhere, all over the world. And he's responsible, he's the leader of the free nation, and he's like, this is his responsibility, and his wife is dying. And he goes in there and he sends, the mom's like having a hard time, so she sends the daughter out. Was her name Morgan too?
I don't remember.
But he talks to his wife, and he's like, or she says, or what the doctor, or he says, the doctor says you're gonna be fine. And she calls him a liar, and that was their little thing. That was their little relationship, and they haven't been around each other the entire movie. And then he goes out, and she died. He goes out, and he sits down next to the daughter, and she goes, and the daughter's figuring out. She's like, "Is mommy in heaven now?" And he's like, "Yeah, no, yeah." And then he just holds her, and he just hugs her, and then he just starts crying. And then I start crying, But that cheeseburger moment, that's what it reminded me of, is like this little kid processing it and someone being there to comfort and just to be there.
Yeah.
Anyway, any other moments that you guys really wanted to hit on, or are those the highlights?
Like 90 in my brain.
So beautiful.
We probably don't have time.
Yeah, there's just so much.
Minute by minute, I can tell you. But...
For me, it's like Hawkeye's moments really stand out as my
his character
weeping moments. And any moment with a father-son, father-daughter relationship just really hits me. Now that I have my own daughters of my own, it's just those kind of moments just really bring out what matters in life. And so
Does it inspire you to be a better father?
It inspires me to be a better daughter. It inspires me to spend more time. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what I love about relationships and movies.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like we said, like the CGI, of course, is fantastic, but like nobody writes better than the Russo. Yeah. Like if they did this as like a crappy stage play in a junior high stage, I'd still love it because of the relationships.
Yeah, so effective in moving. That's why, I mean, that's all everyone was talking about the opening weekend. Was like, everyone was just like, did you cry? Did you cry? Did you cry? That's all everyone was saying. And I put up a picture of me on my Facebook. I said, I'm not going to review this movie, but I can't stop crying. I was like leaving the theater, and I had to go to my daughter's high school play, and I'm like, I can't handle this Shakespeare right now. I'm not mentally or emotionally in the state to do it. But people made fun of me, and then some people went to see the movie like, oh, I get it. So they kind of posted that. But anyway, those were the highlights for me. The second time going through, I had other ones probably towards the top the first time. But Spider-Man and the cheeseburgers, those were the two strongest for me. Yeah. The other things just all threaded together, the Tony Stark stuff and the Captain America stuff, and definitely the Hawkeye stuff, which was very appreciated. But I don't know. I felt ready to see it the second time. I didn't cry as much, but I was a little more distracted this time. I had kids there, but it was just as powerful. And people have said, I think Jayson said the same thing. When you go the second time, you feel it just as much or more because you know what's coming, so you're just trying to process. But you're catching all the little things and all the setup, and it's the writing. It's all there. You could watch this. I decided as a standalone film, and everything is in there to lead up and show you. Maybe not as impactful, like Spider-Man comes out, gets a hug. That didn't mean anything, but they show you the picture. Like everything is set up, and there's the payoff later. If you watch all of the movies, then the payoffs are just. And that's the difference. If you read the
comics, they're even more.
Plus, I mean, the comedy throughout is so consistent and great comedy that really helps balance it.
Thank goodness.
Nobody juggles better than them. So nobody juggles better than Marvel.
Yeah. That was my complaint about Thor Ragnarok, but we're not going to get into that.
Well, that was like the first true comedy in the MCU. Like,
Taika Waititi is an angel.
That was heavy comedy. Clearly, it was a comedy.
I agree, but wrong movie. We'll talk about that another time. But anyway, Karina and Jayson, thank you for being here and for letting me just be emotional and open up. Didn't have anyone to talk to in my car right after this movie was over. I didn't want to put it on Facebook because then there's all the trolls. So it's a safe place. I have Superman here protecting me in my fortress of solitude.
Yeah. Well, thanks for letting us nerd out on your couch with you.
Yeah, of course. But anyway, so Karina and Jayson of the LeBaron family. Do you guys want to shout out your channel or?
Oh yeah, we're doing a Les Mis promotion right now. We're just kind of releasing a bunch of videos of us singing Les Mis songs, and it's all building up to this big 1-year anniversary of One Day More, where we've kind of done some professional mixing of the sound and did some professional videography. It's going to be kind of a cool production video compared to our usual like living room, just whatever.
What's wrong with living room setups?
Well, we love the living room setup. Yeah. That's kind of our bread and butter. But for every now and then, it's fun to do like a more high quality music video. Anyway, and so that's
cool.
Fun.
Yeah. If you don't know who we are, check out our channel, LeBaron Singers, and hopefully you'll like it.
Yep.
But we don't get to nerd out as much as we do.
So we're gonna have them on Saints on Cinema as much as we can to kind of get their nerd on.
Now we're talking.
Yeah. So anyway, but it's because I get to hang out with them every Sunday in church and talk about the gospel and argue about movies. That's our dynamic. So anyway, but thanks again for joining us, and hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any thoughts or anything, if you have, you challenged them with something.
Yeah, put together all of Pepper Potts.
That's right.
If somebody wants to make a montage, that would be nice to.
Yeah. So let's see that. But anyway, if you have any other moments that hit you and you want to share those, we're here to listen. So you can put those in the comments below. But anyway, thanks again. And until next time, we'll see you. Well, we'll see you next time. You'll see us. I can't see you on Saints on Cinema.
If we see you at the store, say hi.
There you go. All right. Thank you. Good night.